Hey, good morning. It's Marvel and Brown with Legacy Locator Services. Now, today we're going to be taking a look at our monthly budget spreadsheet. This spreadsheet is going to help you whether you're doing really well with your finances or whether you're having financial struggles. So, if you're having financial struggles, it's more important than ever to get control of how much money is coming into your home and how much money is going out of your home or out of your bank account. You want to make sure that you can account for 99.9% of everything that you are earning and the same for all your expenses. And so, because a lot of our clients are some of the things that they're coming to us for has to do with finances. We thought it would be a great idea to just come up with a very simple spreadsheet that you can use every single month. Now, this spreadsheet, because we have put this in Google Docs, or I'm sorry, not Google Docs, but Google Sheets, you're going to be able to access it on any device. So whether you're on an iPhone or a Mac, or whether you're using Google products, maybe you're on an Android and you have a Windows laptop, you're going to be able to access this no matter what you're using. And that's one of the reasons we put it in this format. Now, if you don't have a Google Sheets account, you can get one by just signing up for Gmail. So you can go to gmail.com, sign up for a free account, and then once you sign up for Gmail, you are going to have access to so many things. You will have access to Google Docs, which is like a word processing application. You'll have access to Google Sheets, which is what we have our spreadsheet in. You'll also have access to Google Slides, which is like PowerPoint, where you can do presentations. You will have access to Google Forms, where you can do quick polls. Of course, you don't want to put anything sensitive into a Google form because they're not secure, but you can get opinions about things. You can, maybe if you have family members and you're trying to get consensus on something, you can have people fill out the form and, vote. Polling and voting are very popular on Google Forms. You can also access Google, I believe it's called Google Sites, and that's where you can also put up a very simple website. So lots of things that you can access when you sign up for a Gmail account. Now, once you sign up for your Gmail account, you can buy this spreadsheet in our shop. And when you buy this spreadsheet, you're going to receive a kind of like a little flyer with a link that says access my sheet. You're going to click on that link and it will open up Google Sheets and your spreadsheet will be there. It'll look something like this. So what you want to do before you do anything else, you want to make a copy of this so that if you make a mistake or if you do something that messes up a formula, you can just go back to your copy and, resume where you left off. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to make a copy. All you do is go to File and make a copy. And then it's going to ask you to name it. So you can call this, you can just, kind of pick a name. I'm just going to call it my monthly budget spreadsheet. And then I'm going to put it in my surplus funds folder. Now, of course, you can create any folder in another thing that you're going to get access to, which is called Google Drive. Google Drive will give you storage space to store your files. So, a lot comes with that Gmail account. But anyway, I'm going to just click on surplus funds. And these are the folders that I've created. I'm just going to go right here to surplus funds and select it. And then I'm going to click on the blue make a copy button. Okay, so now I have a copy of my file and it's called My Monthly Budget Spreadsheet. And you can even maybe just put something on there like backup. And that way you'll know that this is your backup file. I'm going to go ahead and close this, and we're going to go back to the original file that we started out with. Okay, so just know that all you need to do before you do anything else is make a copy before you make any changes, because that way you will have a fresh document that you can go back to, because this spreadsheet has lots of formulas in it. So if I click on this, this cell, you're going to see the formula right here. And so if you were to take this and delete it, that formula would go away. So the rule of thumb here is that you don't want to do anything to these cells that don't have color. So the ones that are in color, the ones that are highlighted, those are going to be the cells that you can change. But we'll get to that more in a moment. Let's go back up to the very top. You're going to have instructions here that will walk you through how this works. So it says set your starting balance in cell L8. So we want to find cell L8, right? So we're going to go to column L, and then we're going to go down to row 8. And as you can see, that is this cell right here. This is where you're going to take your bank statement and you're going to go to the previous month. So right now we're getting our May spreadsheet ready. So we're in the month of April. This is April 23rd. We're going to get our spreadsheet ready so that when May 1st comes, we're going to be ready to go, right? But you may also have a spreadsheet that you're working on for the month of April. But because April hasn't ended yet, you don't have your ending balance. So when we're getting our spreadsheet ready for the next month, we're just going to estimate how much our ending balance might be. So in the case of this video, and for the sake of time, we're just going to put in $1,000. But this is where once you get your bank statement for the month of April, you want to go into this spreadsheet for the month of May for the next month, and you want to put in your ending balance, okay? Because that is your starting point for the month. Where you left off in the previous month is going to be your starting point for the next month. All right. So then next, and let's just go through our instructions. Then you want to customize your categories and your planned spending amounts in the income and expenses tables below. So the income and expenses tables are these things right here. So here is where you would enter your expenses. And as I said before, this is where you can modify or you can change the categories to fit your unique family and your unique situation. So you can enter in your categories here, and then under plan, which is still highlighted, you want to make sure that you have estimates for how much money you think you're going to spend, which is going to be your budgeted amount. So the way that I like to approach this is I like to take my bank statement from the previous month, and let's say for groceries, I want to look at how much I spent in the last month on groceries, because more than likely I'm going to be buying some of the same things, and that number for the upcoming month should be pretty similar to the one that I had in the previous month, unless you know that there is some event or some reason that you might buy more food or less food at the grocery store. This number is probably going to stay pretty consistent. Now, when you have events coming up, like let's say that it's the month of November and you have a family coming over, you're going to be cooking Thanksgiving dinner, then you know this number is going to be a lot bigger than this, because you're going to be buying more groceries. The other things that might occur might be something like if you have, for example, if you've lost your job and you only have a limited amount of money to spend on groceries, then this number might go down. Like before, when you were working, maybe you spent a lot of money on groceries. But if you know that your expenses are going to have to be cut, then this is where you would go in and you would make those changes. So you just make out your categories based on your life and the expenses that you have on your bank statement, or any other documents that might show where you have been spending your money. You want to know where you've been spending your money, and your bank statement is probably going to be the best place to find that information. Now, you're not going to mess with these again. We're not going to mess with any of these under the actual category or the difference between the planned and the actual. So this difference column is going to give you, either how you've done better or how you've done worse at keeping in line with your budget. So instead of saying planned here, it could really say your budgeted amount, right? But we're just going to keep the word planned here for the time being. Okay, so that is how you're going to do your expenses. Now, for your income, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to look at all of your income, whether it's savings, your paycheck, your bonuses, and any interest that you might. So when you look at that bank statement, if there is interest on your bank statement, you want to put that in here. If you have a side hustle. Now, let's go back to the scenario where maybe you've lost your job. If you've lost your job and you have some income, you may be able to invest in a side hustle. So a lot of people will tell you, oh, just, get a side hustle and start making money. But they don't tell you that a lot of times, if you have a side hustle, there will be an initial investment of some kind. Now, we have another website set up where we have side hustles that you can start with a very low upfront investment. And I will put a link to that below this video or somewhere on this page so that you can check that out. If you're someone who is falling into, the scenario where maybe you're losing your job or you're downsized or you're not making as much money as you used to, then you might want to consider a side hustle, because if you can get a side hustle going where you're making consistent, steady income, then that might be a solution that will help you when you get into these financial struggles, whatever those might be. All right. So your side hustle, maybe if you are a 2 paycheck family, then you can have paycheck 1 and paycheck 2. If you're only one, if you only get one paycheck, one person in the household who is working, then you want to maybe change one of these categories to something else, or you can eliminate it altogether. And if you have investments, so let's say that your investments are making money, you definitely want to put that in there. And then we've left spaces under the income and expenses columns where you can enter a custom category, and you can add as many of those as you would like. Now, you're probably wondering, how are we going to get the information into these fields? If we're not able to manipulate these in any way, how are we going to get the numbers to populate into these fields? Let's go back to our instructions. All right, so then the next thing says, as you enter data in the transactions tab, this sheet will automatically update to show a summary of your spending for the month. So I'm going to move my screen down so that you can see at the very bottom here, we have 2 tabs. We have one that is the summary, and that's really like your dashboard, right? This is going to give you information, number 1, on the month that you're in. It's going to give you your starting balance. And we said, in the beginning, we were going to use $1,000 as our starting balance. So you're going to have your starting balance, and then it's going to calculate your ending balance based on the numbers that you put in here. So the other good thing about these shaded areas, this is your budget. This represents your budget. Okay, so we have totals here at the very bottom for your income and your expenses. So when you put your expenses in here, you look at your bills, you look at your, maybe even you might be looking at your credit report to see if there are debts in your credit report that you might want to pay down. Then you can also enter those here in, various categories. Okay, so then once you put your expenses in here, you're going to get an automatic total here at the bottom. So the expenses that we put in so far total $31.08. All right. So then for our income, we have $5,850. Okay, so we know from the very beginning, before we even enter any transactions into our spreadsheet, we know that at a minimum, we're going to need 3108 in income in order to even break even, right? And so if let's say that our income is only $2,500, we only have one paycheck, we don't have a side hustle, we don't have any investments, no bonuses, no interest, etc., then we pretty much know we're in trouble, right? Because our expenses equal 3108. And if we only have $2,500, we're going to have a deficit. This number is not going to be positive. It's going to be negative. So that is where, when you're setting up your budget, you're automatically going to know from the very beginning, when you go through this process, whether you have a positive situation going on here or if you have a negative situation going on. If you have a negative situation, this is where you're going to have to figure out, do I get a second job? Do I start a side hustle? Do I get a roommate? Maybe you have an extra room in your home where you can, have someone, a relative or someone that you know well, maybe, who's maybe facing some of the same challenges. Maybe they could move in with you and you guys could share expenses. There are lots of different ways when you have time, when you have a timeline that gives you, maybe a few months or like 6 months or less to kind of figure things out, then you can come up with some solutions that will help you. And we try to do that here at Legacy Locator Services. When you contact us, we look at your situation and we try to help you come up with ideas that can help you, get out of whatever the situation is that you might be in. A lot of times we can help you to find unclaimed funds that you didn't even know were available. And that can really make a difference for a lot of families. Okay, so now that we know what's going on with our snapshot, our dashboard, we know where to find our instructions. The other thing that I want to point out is you're always going to have a reminder here that you only edit highlighted cells. So that's going to be your reminder that you are only to edit these cells. You do not enter anything into these cells right here. Okay. Only the items in the shaded areas can be changed. All right. And then, so now, we are going to go to our transactions tab. And this is where you're going to actually sit down every day. And you may even do this once a week. Maybe you don't do it every day. I like to kind of write down what I'm spending as I spend. So let's say that I make a trip to the grocery store. I have a note in my cell phone where I can actually write down, the items that I bought and the amount and the date. Okay. So you want to have the date, the item that you bought, and the amount. And you might even want to put a little description in there. And that way, when you get ready to update your monthly budget spreadsheet, you're going to have all that information written down and ready to go into the spreadsheet. This is where you're going to enter the information. You're going to put your date here, the amount, a short description, and the categories are already written for you. So you would use the categories that you wrote right here. These categories are going to populate onto this transactions tab so that you don't have to write them down, and they're going to be consistent, right? There's, a way for you to be consistent every single month. And that's why we tell you, if you come up with new categories, just add them here. All right. So in the transactions area, you're going to go over once you, like, for example, if you pay your mortgage, then you are going to use this drop down. And as you can see, it's got all of the different categories that you have listed on the summary tab right here. They're all listed right here. So you don't have to write anything in. All you do is click on that down arrow and you enter your category. And you're going to do that for each one of the expenditures that you have. So here I spent $80 on the internet, paying my internet bill. And so I've got the internet here. I paid $250 for electricity. Now on this side, I'm going to document and write down my income. So you're not going to have as much probably going on this side than you will on the expenses side. But this is where people kind of struggle. They don't know how much money they're spending each month on different things. And so you definitely want to have this filled out, and you want it to be as accurate as possible. All right. So let's say that you're working on a previous month, and really what I would do is we're starting with the month of May. We're going to have a separate tab for each month. And that will give you a way that you can just go in. Everything's done for you. You just fill in the information, and then it's going to spit out, where you're leaving off at the end of the month, where you started from, where you're ending, and it's going to tell you your net income. Now, if you have a loss that month, let's say you spent more money than you made, this will say net loss. You're also going to be able to see how much you're, increasing your savings. So this number is going to give you an indication of your savings. This will tell you your net income. Okay. So it's a very simple way for you to keep track. And this is the thing, like when you are working with creditors, or if you are looking to maybe get a home equity line of credit or a loan of some kind, or you need to negotiate payment arrangements, you are going to know exactly what you're making, what your income is, and what your expenses are. And that's going to tell you how much you can afford to pay for, whatever it is that you're negotiating. It's also going to help you to know how much you can afford to pay if you get a loan. So a lot of times, people will go out, they'll get a loan, they'll qualify for this gigantic amount of money, and then find later on that they're having a hard time making those payments. So if you are negotiating a loan of some kind, you're going to know exactly how much wiggle room you have in your budget to handle those payments. All right. So just remember, and again, I'm going to move my screen down. You want to make sure that you are using your dashboard and your summary to know exactly where you are every month. You're going to take your ending balance. Once you get your statement and it's finalized for the month, you're going to take that and put it into your starting balance so that these numbers will be accurate. You're also going to be using your bank statements, your credit report, your pay stubs, All of those documents are going to give you an accurate view of your finances, so that you can put, numbers into these, into your budget that are accurate, that are on target. And then when you're doing your transactions, you want to make sure that you're looking at your receipts or using some documentation that you've gotten, either a confirmation page or a receipt or something that tells you how much you actually spent for each one of your expenses. Your pay stubs, your income statements, your investment statements, all of that is going to have how much money you are bringing in. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Again, I will put a link to this spreadsheet somewhere on this page so that you can access it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Legacy Locator Services, and we'll be glad to help you with anything, any questions that you might have. Okay? All right. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.